Okay, with that, we will go to our final segment, and that is the Wayne County Prosecutor race. We have with us Prosecutor Kim Worthy, and we have Victoria Burton-Harris. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So nice to see you. Excellent. Let's start again. We will do opening statements in alphabetical order. So Victoria, if you can start with your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. I am running to be your next Wayne County prosecutor so that I can dismantle racist practices that have encouraged and supported mass incarceration. I know that in order to end mass incarceration, you have to reform the criminal justice system by first reforming the county prosecutor's office. That's the gatekeeper to the system. I'm running for county prosecutor so that I can change the practice of punishment only in response to crime and instead lead the efforts on prevention and intervention. I want to ensure that we don't continue to feed the school to prison pipeline, that we instead offer wraparound holistic services to our youth, and that we stop treating mental illness and substance abuse as criminal issues, and that we see them as the public health crisis that they each are. One cannot get well in a cell. Cells are not where people grow, learn, and thrive. It's actually where people go to unravel, become isolated, and relegated to the bottom of society. I'm running to reform the cash bail system and increase public safety while shrinking our jail population. And as the true progressive in this race, I've been endorsed by Bernie Sanders. My experience as a criminal defense attorney, working on the ground with people in the community my entire career, it has taught me a lot. I have experience protecting people's rights against a very parasitic system, many of whom were innocent. In this criminal justice system, it's deeply connected to slavery. The 13th Amendment allows a form of slavery when someone is criminalized. And that means that this system was not built for all people. We need gatekeepers, prosecutors who know this and will enforce policies that make the system work fairly for all people. I have experience on the ground working closely with folks directly impacted by this system. And that experience has informed me that our current policies and practices, they are not working. They do not address the root causes of crime, poverty, lack of resources, mental illness, substance abuse, and unaddressed trauma. I do not have experience sending people to jail and prison, especially innocent people. According to the Vera Institute out of DC, they came up and studied our Wayne County jail last year and told us that we're jailing too many people and the wrong people. That means our diversion programs are not working as we're being told. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And with that, please, Kim, so nice to see you. Take your 2 minutes.
Good to see you. My name is Kim Worthy, and I'm the current Wayne County prosecutor. Previous to that, I was an assistant prosecutor and a circuit court judge and a recorder's court judge. Now, our policies and procedures, back in 2004, when I came into office, I was one of the only prosecutors in the country that was talking about reform at that particular time, before they were calling everybody progressives. We started out saying that we should concentrate on the proactive and be proactive when it comes to crime and not just completely reactive. We started 24 different diversion court programs. And so it started out from the teen court to lead-based paint proactivity before there was even a Flint. We talked about teen court. We also talked about truancy. We talked about young offenders. And we had diversion programs that were effective back in 2005 that still continue today. We have diverted more than 6,000 and probably closer to 10 when we include the truants, juveniles from the juvenile justice system. We have also, in our adult court, created and diverted almost 5,500 of them from the criminal justice system. So for anybody to say that we didn't talk about proactivity is just not knowing what was going on in the system. We also, yes, we are the gatekeepers. We also started the first elder abuse unit to care for our seniors. We started the first Fair Michigan project, which I co-created with now Attorney General Dana Nessel, who's the first unit in the country to deal with crimes against the LGBTQ community. We also started Michigan's first criminal public integrity unit. And that is a unit that worked, I hired my biggest nemesis, Val Newman, who was nationally respected in doing these particular cases. We reviewed and we invite anyone that has a claim of new innocence to apply, and we reviewed over 1,200 cases, and we invite people to apply. We are the only ones doing this work in Michigan, so we have the most exonerations because we're the only ones bold enough to go and look at these cases, because I don't think any prosecutor's office should be afraid to look at their own convictions. We also have the rape kit crisis that we had back in 2009, where we have now convicted 215 serial rapists and rapists that were stalking the streets of Detroit and attacking our children, our seniors, our women, and our men. And also we look at treatment. We don't look at all roads lead to incarceration. We have 24 treatment courts in Detroit. I am a 30-year advocate for mental health illness reform. I have established group homes for people who didn't have any place to live. I work daily with children and teens and adults without the proper care. We have many mental illness programs in our particular office as well. We have mental health treatment courts, we have veteran courts, we have sobriety courts, and we also have.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go right back to Kim. What have you done in recent years to support a change in unfair incarceration rates for Black citizens in Wayne County?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of things we've done, we have decriminalized crimes that we no longer prosecute. For instance, we haven't prosecuted marijuana convictions in over 5 years. We make sure we look at lower level offenders. We first look at HIDA, and that's Homes Useful Training Act. We also look at lower level offenders for diversion. We look at other offenses as well to make sure that we don't have that pipeline going on. We also make sure that we look at each case individually. We do not process cases on a police report alone. There are 30, we look at 20,000 felony cases a year. We only issue about 60% of those. So there are 30% of cases we do not issue, for example, on domestic violence. And we have domestic violence, we have over 8,000 cases of domestic violence per year. And we only prosecute 3,600 of them. So there are 4,400 cases that we don't look at, either there wasn't a proper police investigation or something else like that was going on. So we make sure that we don't rubber stamp, because we are the gatekeepers and we take that very seriously. So we have a number of programs. We have wraparound services for the newly exonerated. We also have a juvenile mediation program where we do not look at charging. We partner with Wayne County Mediation Services, where we make sure that we have those services mediated without incarceration and without jail time. And we also are very, very strong advocates when it comes to the 1970s lawsuit that was filed against the Wayne County jails back in the 1970s. We've been working on that ever since, and I started being actively involved about 2 years ago. And now, even daily, we had a 2-hour meeting today. We are making sure that we empty the jails of people who don't deserve, who are not there because of COVID-19. Back in the March 3rd of this year, there were 1,388 people in the Wayne County Jail, and now that has dropped 41%. So we meet with the chief judge. We used to have a member of the ACLU. We meet with attorneys for the inmates. We meet with jail personnel, and we look at each and every case and make sure that they are then not in the jail due to COVID-19. So again, we look at every case very practically. We do not rubber stamp, and we have a process that we go through for every case that we charge to make sure that we are not charging the one, and we pay particular attention to lower level felonies.
Thank you so much, Kim. Victoria, what would you do to support a change in unfair incarceration rates of Black citizens in Wayne County?
Well, if you look at the front page of the New York Times this morning, I represented a man that was wrongfully prosecuted after racist, faulty technology, facial recognition technology was used to pick his face up out of a database of old driver's licenses. And the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office issued an apology and said that that case was dismissed because they didn't have sufficient evidence to move forward, and that the case should have never been brought. And I agree with that statement. The problem is that as a defense attorney, I can tell you that they do rubber stamp these warrants and authorize criminal charges all the time. I can tell you often that prosecutors are in the courtroom and telling me, Victoria, I don't even understand how or why this was charged. There's not sufficient evidence to move forward. I can tell you that if you review the record of those cases, you will see that they are oftentimes dismissed after wasting taxpayer dollars being litigated through the system. And the reason on the record is there's insufficient evidence to move forward. So the very first thing that I would do to ensure Black and brown folks are not wrongfully prosecuted and criminalized in the system, where they're only 40% of the Wayne County population, yet Black folks make up the majority of the Wayne County jail population, is to make sure that I'm not prosecuting first and then investigating later. That's a simple process that you have to have a policy for in your warrant division. And if you are there to ensure the policy is being followed, apologies don't need to come. You don't need to work so hard and spend taxpayer dollars overturning convictions of wrongful and innocent people if you don't bring innocent people into the system to begin with.
Thank you, Victoria. Next question, Victoria will begin. Have you participated in demonstrations supporting Black Lives Matter in person or in other ways?
I'm proud to say that I have been at most of them that I have been invited to, and I get invites on a weekly basis. I spend my weekends on Saturdays and Sundays attending multiple rallies, and not just attending them, but I'm marching with them, I'm standing with them, and I am delivering words to them, encouraging folks to continue to march. I'm also, as an attorney with the National Lawyers Guild and National Conference of Black Lawyers, very proud to say that I'm a movement lawyer on the front lines of Black liberation. And when a protester is arrested after a lawful legal protest, I'm there, Johnny on the spot, along with several dedicated defense attorneys. And so I, as an elected official, would still be coming down and making sure that the people I serve know that I am with them, that I will march with them, that I will also make demands of our lawmakers right alongside them, because that's what a true servant does. That's what someone who represents the people does.
Thank you. Kim, have you participated in demonstrations supporting Black Lives Matter in person or in other ways?
In person, I have participated in 4 of them, and I brought my children along so they can see what the legacy will be if you properly protest and you properly march. Now, I have to return to something that was said. Clearly, my opponent does not understand how the office works. We are regularly criticized for the way that we do not rush to judgment, the way that we do not rubber stamp the police. I just have to say that. And I want to make sure that 30% of the warrants that we issue are denied for various reasons. And so, yes, I have participated. I come from a family where my father was the first African-American from Michigan to graduate from West Point. If you can imagine a Black man that matriculated at West Point back in the 40s and 50s. He had shared stories with me about how he was treated, how he almost didn't make it through, how he almost lost his life. And once he was commissioned by John Dingell Sr., once he was commissioned, how he was chased with by trucks full of pitchforks and white men as he traversed and left Michigan and drove with my mother to the state of Colorado for his first assignment. It has been ingrained in me from a young child about where I came from. My parents came here from the South to work in the factories and brought their experiences with them. And we still are suffering today from some of those actions. So again, yes, I have marched. Didn't just start marching when Black Lives Matter came along. I've been marching since I was in college at the University of Michigan during the BAM movement when they were mistreating Black students on campus. So this is nothing new for me. This is nothing I just started. Again, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. You don't just march when one thing happens, you march. I have marched my whole life for true justice and equality, starting from my days when I was at the University of Michigan when I was 17 years old.
Thank you, Kim. And so now we'll go to Kim for the next question. What steps do you plan to implement to safeguard against wrongful convictions?
Again, we started that since 2005. I wanted to have a conviction integrity unit when I met Craig Watkins in Dallas, Texas. And he had that unit, one of the first in the nation that was certainly operating. I rallied and I championed and I begged for funds to begin this unit to the tune of $750,000. And finally, 2.5 years ago, we were able to take the first unit. I hired a woman named Valerie Newman, who I believe was on this call, who was my biggest nemesis and has been doing this as her life's work. This is a real unit. Some units start across this country and they don't exonerate anybody. Again, we're the only ones in Michigan until our Attorney General started one that were doing this work. We invite people to do that. Some of the exonerees are my biggest supporters. And we went with some of our exonerees and Ms. Newman to the Wayne County Commission just about 3 months ago to ask this commission to be expanded, because we are not shy about inviting people to apply. Again, we have looked at over 1,200 of those cases, and we have found 700 of them to be solid. We have 500 more to investigate. It's a very long process. When you're looking at overturning of jury verdict, you have to be serious, you have to be methodical, and we want to make sure justice is done, and we're not afraid to do that. And we're the only ones in the state that are doing it.
Thank you, Kim. Victoria.
I'm going to read to you a statement from the Wayne County Prosecutor Office, a statement that was issued today. The case regarding, and I'm going to include my client, Robert Williams, the case that was, again, on the front page of the New York Times. The case was dismissed by the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office on its own motion because a supervisor reviewed the case and determined there was insufficient evidence to charge Mr. Williams. So I, again, ask the question, if there's insufficient evidence to charge him, why was he charged? This is proof positive that I, in that building every day, because I'm there in the courtroom, can tell you exactly what's happening. They oftentimes rubber stamp these warrant requests without even giving them a second glance. And their own prosecutors in the courtroom acknowledge that. And so what I will do to ensure that innocent people are not brought into the system, I won't charge people until there has been a thorough investigation. This practice of charge first, investigate later, if at all, it has to stop. It costs taxpayers too much money. When you prosecute an innocent person, it costs taxpayer dollars. And then if they're convicted and they fight for release through appeal, and the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office fights against their release at the appellate stage every step along the way, it's costing taxpayer dollars a second time. And then it costs us a third time as taxpayers to send the case through the Conviction Integrity Unit, when all we had to do to begin with was slow down, make sure that we are the gatekeepers to this system, protecting innocent people from coming in, and we do our job. At what point do we say we need to be held accountable, not just for getting praise and getting folks out, but being the ones who put people in and brought them into this system and fought their release every step along the way before we decided, okay, we'll now try to let you out through the Conviction Integrity Unit.
Thanks, Victoria. You get the next question. We have seen that there's a major shift in the public's mindset about Black lives and policing, specifically in handling policing cases. What would you see changing in Wayne County in the new term?
If I'm elected, one of the first things that we are going to do is to hold police accountable, not just when it makes the news, not just when it's popular to do so. We are going to hold police accountable when they lie in police reports. We're going to hold police accountable when they lie on the witness stand. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office has told criminal defense attorneys in Wayne County that it was going to provide a list of untruthful officers. It has yet to do that. There are several defense attorneys on this call, and if I ask any of them if they've received it, they'll all tell you no, and it's because it has not been turned over. That not only needs to be turned over to defense attorneys, it needs to be public for everyone to see. We also, if we know that there's a list of officers who can't testify because of their history of untruthfulness on the stand or their history of untruthfulness in their police reports, why are we relying solely on police reports when we authorize warrants? Why are we not saying we need to see body cam footage in the warrant division before we authorize this? So that's going to be a new policy moving forward. When I'm elected, we are going to, again, make sure that we are doing all that we can to protect innocent people and ensure that we're holding police accountable. There's no accountability when these officers don't turn on their body-worn cameras. And that in Detroit it's policy that they do it. And when we have these cases go through the criminal legal system and they tell us, oh, nope, there's no body cam footage. Why not? Oh, I guess it wasn't turned on. Well, then who's going to hold you accountable? Why are you still allowed to be on the street doing God knows what with your body cam off against the policy of your own department? I can tell you that when you look across the nation and you see law enforcement officers taking the lives of innocent Black people, that's not the first time that they engaged in misconduct. The misconduct started when they lied in police reports in the very beginning, when they lied on the stand. So we need to be holding them all accountable, and they need to be held accountable independently, not by someone who necessarily works in the prosecutor's office. Where is the integrity in that?
Thank you, Victoria. Kim, question about how specifically in handling policing cases, what do you see changing in Wayne County in the next term?
We are the only prosecutor's office in the state that has a public integrity unit that has dedicated prosecutors that every day, day in and day out, they investigate and they prosecute police misconduct, police brutality. In fact, in just the last few years, we have prosecuted 71 officers for police misconduct, police beatings, and other police misconduct. We're the only ones in the state doing this. And you have to know your history and look at your history when it comes to me. Back in the 1990s, when Malice Green was killed by two white police officers, two white rogue police officers, I stood up and I charged those officers. And that case still stands as the first and only, well, not the only now, but the first case in American jurisprudence in the United States where two white police officers on duty were found guilty, not just charged, but found guilty of murdering Malice Green, an unarmed Black motorist, unlawfully. So since that time, we've been very serious about police brutality in Wayne County. Now I have to make sure also, back in 2011, myself and Paul Howard, who was the Fulton County DA, went all the way to the Obama administration with our 10 points. And I'm just gonna read a few of them when it comes to police brutality, what we wanted to see. We were talking about this almost 9 years ago, the things that everybody else is talking about now. A national database for police to be reported when they can conduct police brutality. It is a national law, with child protection law, where every teacher, coach, or police officer has to report child abuse. And we think that police also should be mandatory reporters. They should be forced to be able to, by law, and forced to be able to report police brutality, not just the ones you see on camera, but the ones you see behind police closed doors and police brutality that occurs back and then. We also have to make sure that we severely limit deadly force by police officers. That's a no-brainer. We have to make sure that prosecutors are authorized to control misconduct cases and incidents that occur in those jurisdictions. And if they refuse to prosecute, and some people in the state refuse to prosecute any police officer, if they refuse to prosecute, then they have the obligation to have an independent agency come in and investigate those cases. Even if you have an outfit like mine that prosecutes on a regular basis, you still should have an independent agency come in and look at those charges. We also need to look at
Thank you so much.
We also need to get rid of sovereign and qualified immunity, and we have other issues as well. We have 10 points that need to be done when it comes to police reform. But again, I'm the only one in the state prosecuting police brutality on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is going to go back to you, Kim, and it is from the chat here. Will you cease prosecuting minor misdemeanors so that funding allocated for that can be diverted to restorative justice programs and community well-being?
I'm not going to say that we're not going to prosecute every non-violent misdemeanor or even lower level misdemeanors. We already have a process in place. We divert most of the people in the juvenile court. We diverted between 6,000 to 8,000 again when we add in the truancy cases. So we already divert them. We already have a step-by-step process that we go through to do that as well. We haven't prosecuted any possession of marijuana cases in over 5 years, except for 2 agencies that continue to bring them to us, and we routinely dismiss them. And so we have also decriminalized several of the misdemeanors that we used to prosecute. We have gone to the state legislature to make sure that some of these cases, some of these crimes are not even laws anymore. And so we take a very serious look when it comes to the adult side. Again, we have a general diversion program that diverts out lower level misdemeanor crimes. And we make sure that they go through our 1-year program and they follow all the treatment goals and anything that has been recommended to them by treatment providers. And they, in fact, their cases are dismissed at the end of that program, at the end of that time. So again, we also have restorative justice programs in our mediation programs. We are getting ready to launch another restorative justice program in the juvenile court, where we bring in the victim, we bring in the person that has been in the youth home. We have them meet together, and hopefully our goal is to make sure that that person does not then go to reoffend in the adult system. So again, we're getting ready to roll that out, and that would have been rolled out except for COVID-19. We have other list of restorative justice programs that we've done over the years since 2005 to 2012, and then again from 2013 to today's date. Our program called Right Track in Juvenile Court, again, merits out any ordinance violation, any of the small crimes as well, and the lower level misdemeanors and lower level felonies again. So we have those programs in place, and we look forward to expanding some of them.
Thank you. Victoria, the question is about, will you cease prosecuting minor misdemeanors so that funding can be allocated to restorative justice programs and community well-being?
Absolutely. That's a part of my platform. I put it in writing so that people can hold me accountable and hold me to that. As a criminal defense attorney, I can tell you that we still are bringing in a lot of marijuana cases in this system by this prosecutor's office. I just had, during a pandemic, a client called and said that they were picked up for an old marijuana warrant and they were brought to the county jail. And so if we are going to not prosecute those, then that needs to actually happen and not just in words. We need to ensure that we are not putting people in the county jail for low-level offenses such as driving without a license. I spent several months last year traveling the state with the Michigan Jails Task Force, and Pew Research Institute, they've studied our county jails because there has not been a lot of transparency in who's been going in and why. And so they came up and they did the digging for us. And what they found is that the majority of the people in the county jails are there for low-level nonviolent offenses, such as state traffic misdemeanors. And you may be told, and folks have been told, that the prosecutor's office doesn't handle misdemeanors. That is absolutely not true. If you go to the prosecutor's website, you will see that they have a unit dedicated solely to misdemeanors. In fact, the supervisor for the misdemeanor unit happens to be on this forum. So they are prosecuting misdemeanors. They are bringing a lot of innocent people into the system and holding them in the county jail. And we have research institutes out of DC who have said, you need to stop that. Those people are not a danger to society, and you are wasting taxpayer dollars bringing them into the system when you can simply deny the warrant request. It's not bring them in and then divert them out. No, how about you don't bring them in at all because you have decriminalized certain low-level nonviolent offenses.
Thank you. Next question, back to Victoria. Describe your ideal prosecutor's office. How would that serve the citizens of Wayne County?
As the elected prosecutor, I'll be there. That office will not run itself. My executive board will not run it for me. I will be there and I'll be seen every single day in that building. In addition to that, I'll make sure that that office is transparent and accountable to the people that it serves. I will make sure that I am in the community and not just every 4 years when I want votes. I'll make sure that I am tethered to an advisory council, a community advisory council, who can make sure that I am addressing the needs of the people that I serve. Again, it's not about me. It's about those who I serve. And as a servant of the people, you can't serve the people if you're not communicating with them. If you are not talking with them, eating with them, marching with them, you have no idea what they need. You have no idea if that office is running in a way that they need it to run. And so when you are transparent, you are also publishing statistics about who's coming into the system, how people are leaving the system, how many people did you divert, at what point did you divert them, what are the demographics of people that you're bringing into the system. There does not need to be a dashboard created. In 16 years, we should have been able to find very easily a way to publish at the minimum quarterly reports and statistics. Vera from DC, again, an independent source, they came up and they have studied Wayne County and the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office some time ago. And what they found is that there's not even a database for that kind of information to be collected so it can be disseminated to the public. This is a no-brainer, folks. This is, a question of if we want to be transparent and let people know what we're doing, or if we don't. If we say that we do, we just do it. It does not require a 16-year process. It does not require any of the other excuses and reasons we've been given as to why that office is not being transparent and accountable to the people that it represents.
Thank you, Victoria. Kim, what's your ideal office?
Yes, I'm the only one in this race that has been to each and every one of the 43 jurisdictions in Wayne County in excess of 5 times. Anyone who says that a prosecutor is not doing their job because they're not physically in the office every day, which is a stretch, is they have to go over to the Wayne County Commission. We have to meet with public officials. We have to meet with police agencies. We have to meet with constituents. We have to go to Flat Rock. We have to go to Canton. We have to spend time in Detroit, and we have to meet with elected officials, and we have to certainly build relationships. I'm the one and the only one that runs the office, and my ideal office is one that we continue to work on. We have so many good initiatives that we started. We also want to advocate again for expanded mediated solutions. We want to make sure that we provide a 24-hour warrant review, so we're moving people in and out of the jail. It's very easy to say that you want to do this, you want to do that, but you're confined by your budget. I run a $44 million budget and have delivered 15 balanced budgets, and it has not been easy. We have scrapped and saved and been aggressive and gone after grants so we can run our programs and so we can be the best office we can be. There are programs that we wanted to establish for years that we weren't able to do because we certainly didn't have the resources to do so. And going forward in this COVID process is going to be even harder because the county is facing a $180 million budget deficit. So again, we have done an extremely good job in trying to expand and trying to let people know what we're doing, to make sure we have wraparound services to create and deal with every constituency in Wayne County, from it with LGBT to people of color, to women, to rape victims, to children, to seniors who are molested, in every democratic that we can, to make sure. You notice you don't hear much said about victims, and we represent all of the people of the state of Michigan, not just defendants, but also victims as well. I have looked into the eyes of molested children and homicide victim families, and sex people, and sexual human traffic people have been human trafficked, and sexual assault victims, and seen their carnage, seen their pain. And we have stood there with them to make sure that we are strong victim advocates to make them whole. And again, we have to make sure that we do all of that within a very constrained budget, and we've been very good about doing that. Are there improvements to be made? Yes, we are certainly, we want to establish that in the poo-poo, a dashboard like they have in Chicago and like they have in San Francisco and other areas, to make yourself more transparent is certainly needed. We have tried, our annual reports are accessible. And again, we have also done citizen academies, town halls. We send out press releases. We try to do but we can do a better job in being transparent. That is true. And that is one of my main focuses in my next cycle. But again, you have to deal with victims of crime very gingerly, but at the same time, a prosecutor has a mandated function of making sure justice and due process is brought to defendants as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, I have a couple of more questions here. And this is, Kim will start. What percentage of juvenile life offenders in your office have been resentenced due to the most recent U.S. Supreme Court decision, or have any, or would you for Victoria?
We have, I believe we had 149, because in those cases of our juvenile lifers, they included 17-year-olds that were lawfully convicted as adults. And so when you add in the 17-year-olds, I think we had 149, and we have sentenced well over 100. There isn't any place in the state that comes close to doing that. We have resentenced over 100 of the juvenile lifers, and the only reason they're not all done is we have some that we still have to do, and we have to manage with defense attorney schedules, with expert schedules, so we'd be much further along. We've even done 2 hearings during the COVID-19 process remotely. So again, we had a very, very robust process when we were directed by when everybody, all the prosecutors in the country were directed by the United States Supreme Court to resentence juvenile lifers. We began with a very deliberate process. We looked at every single case. A lot of my colleagues across the state just said we're gonna fight them all. We didn't do that. We took a very individual look at each case. We read all the trial files, and we decided the majority of them, I believe it was 80 at the time, and it's now turned into about 95, that we decided we're going to ask for a term of years sentence. We started with the ones that have been in prison longest. We worked with SATO very closely. We worked with the bench very closely. We developed policies and procedures that they have adopted through the state to make sure that these were done. And we've had a very robust process since the very beginning when we were told by the Supreme Court. So again, we have attacked this process very robustly. You will find our numbers higher than almost most people in the country that have done these cases. And again, there are certain laws that we are prescribed by, and we have sentenced, I believe it's 95 juvenile lifers so far.
Thank you.
Or
Victoria, resentence them so that they no longer have life.
Right, because we're not talking about people that didn't do the crime. We're talking about people that did, and because of science and the direct dictates of the United States Supreme Court.
Is it my turn to talk right now, Lisa?
Okay.
Or
we didn't start you. No, go ahead, Victoria.
Okay, thanks.
We'll start right now. Sorry. Go
okay. All right. So I have had lots of conversations with folks from the State Appellate Defender's Office, folks who are currently or who have handled a lot of those cases. And what they will tell me is that, yes, those cases have been resentenced, but their resentencing has been life without parole. So that means they're not coming home. We have to be very careful with the language that's spoken, and we have to dig beneath the surface and ask, what does that really mean? In 2016, the Harvard Law School did a study and said that the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office was one of the slowest in the country to bring home our former juvenile lifers. So it's not about just resentencing. It's about resentencing so that they can be released and they can be brought back home to their families. People age out of crime. We know that it is not okay to say that what a child did at 16 or 17, they should still be paying for at the age of 60 or 70. We know that just here recently, there was a man who lost his life during the pandemic, and he would not have lost his life had the Wayne Wayne County Prosecutor's Office not opposed his release, not drug their feet in making sure that he could come home. They opposed it every step along the way. And to this day, he's not here and he's not coming back because of those practices. And it's just so callous to say that we are progressive and the progressive in the state with bringing home our former juvenile lifers. When I just sat down with the father of a juvenile lifer this past week, his son is named Q, and he has reached out to national criminal justice reform orgs to bring attention to his son's imprisonment and to bring attention to the fact that despite all efforts on all fronts, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office is opposing his release, and they are advocating for him to be resentenced, but resentenced to a term of life. Life. That's not progressive. That's morally reprehensible.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you very much. And with that, we are at the end of our time. So we are going to have closing statements in reverse alphabetical order. Kim, please take 1 minute.
Thank you. You know, our prosecutor's bread and butter is the truth, it's honesty, it's integrity. And I have to say, I have sat here and listened to so many untruths about my record. First of all, it has not been 95 people that we have resentenced to life without parole. There's only been 5 that have been resentenced to life without parole. The overwhelming majority of them have been sentenced to a term of years, and that's but one truth. If you have a candidate for the chief law enforcement officer in the county who cannot even tell the truth on the campaign trail about the record, but the good thing is, with a click of a mouse, you can find the truth. And with a click of a mouse, you can come up with stories and statistics and the truth about what's going on in my office. It's very disturbing when you have someone running for this office, when you have to be counted on for truth and honesty and leadership and experience and integrity to make sure you misrepresent records. Now, I want to just go back to what my record is. We've talked about the various programs that we've had. We've talked about the conviction integrity unit when no one else in the state is bold enough to do it. We've talked about the mental health concerns that we have. And we want to talk about what we're going to do going forward. We're going to continue with our work with treatment courts. We're going to continue with our work on reform. We're going to continue with our work in advocating for a state and national database to track police brutality. We're going to continue with our work to combat police brutality. We're going to continue with our work to expand our diversion and resolution and our mediated resolution programs. We're going to continue our work with restorative justice. We're going to continue our work with already established restorative justice practices program. We're going to continue our work to enhance wraparound services for the newly exonerated, including transportation services, housing services, and free tuition for those who want to go to college. We're going to continue our work to be better at our transparency. We're going to continue our work to provide leadership and comfort to human trafficking victims, to rape victims, to child sexual abuse victims, to elder abuse victims, to victims of homicides and their families. And for every other crime that we do for our victims, at the same time, we're going to continue working and making sure that we bring due process to defendants. I urge you to fact check this chat and fact check this form. And you will find some things that are very different from what's being said. I urge for your support. Again, you know me, you know that I'm honest, you know that I have good integrity, you know that I have good character, and I ask you to vote for me on August the 4th.
Sorry, we will give Victoria 2 minutes since Kim went over. If you can make that adjustment, Louise, go ahead.
Thank you. It is time for our actions to align with our words. When we stop criminalizing children like a 10-year-old Black boy in Canton last year after a dodgeball incident, we will be a better county. When do we answer for the injustice against Devontae Sanford, who was wrongfully imprisoned for almost a decade after we knew he was innocent? You want to talk about Googling and fact-checking and integrity? That's a great place to start. When do we do something about criminalizing poor people who can't afford cash bail and are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty? When do we stop throwing people with mental illness and substance addiction in jail? When do we treat those issues as a public health crisis and not a criminal justice issue? Again, Vera Research Institute out of DC, they studied our county jails just last year, and they provided a disturbing report on the high amount of mentally ill people we need in our jails. You don't have to take my word for it. Read the report. It's public. It came out in January of this year. This is all happening on our watch because for years we've done nothing different. We have continued to keep the same people in office and never question their record, especially the things they do not boast about. We deserve answers, and we certainly deserve better. We deserve someone who's going to reform the broken cash bail system, in the failed war on drugs that has taken so many of our Black men, in the school to prison pipeline, and bring restorative justice to all people in Wayne County. Across our country, there is this national uprising. Folks are tired of doing what we've always done and getting what we've always gotten. We are on the precipice of something new, something bold, and something different. We need and deserve bold change. Change, not a continuation of the same. New leadership in the prosecutor's office. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for you as your next Wayne County prosecutor.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And with that, I would like to thank Kim Worthy and Victoria Burton-Harris for participating today, and all our candidates. But I really have to give a shout out to Kent Douglas, Louise Weller, Susan Nichols, Renee. There's so much work that goes behind an event like this, putting it together. And I'll tell you, they were professional. They were hardworking. We met yesterday. We have pages and pages of notes so that it could come off well. And to them, I thank, and it's been an honor to serve you today as your moderator.